Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the birth chart, reading the birth chart of Michael Jackson's part 2, using the method of evolutionary astrology. Now, in the previous video, I talked about his sun in Virgo, ruled by Mercury and in the 6th house, right? And the 6th house, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but I'm just going to say the 6th house is about work. Your everyday mundane work. And it's also about service, the service that you give to the community, to the world. It's also about mentors. So we'll get to all of that, really important subjects later. But now, I don't know, I was thinking of going and talking about the moon because that's what I usually do. And I think most astrologers would talk about the meanings of the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, which is called the primal triad. Now, but I actually want to divert our attention here to the IC, which I circled here in gold, you see, because I can't give Michael Jackson any other color but gold, right? Befitting the king of pop. And the IC is essentially the sign that is on the cusp of the 4th house. And the 4th house is about home. Oh, excuse me. The reason I'm doing this is because it's in Gemini. And Gemini, as well as Virgo, which is the sun, is ruled by Mercury. So there's a tight connection between Michael Jackson's core identity, which is that core identity is one way of describing the sun sign, okay? There's many other things you can say about it. But there's a tight connection between the formation of his sense of self, his identity, and the home and his sense of that home. But you can say, oh, it's obvious. We're all influenced by the home we grew up in. But I think here it's all the stronger because let's just look at the symbolism. So the 4th house is home. It's our roots. It's the tribe, our tribe that goes further back. It's our upbringing, the circumstances that we found ourselves in growing up in this home. And what are they? They're about Gemini. Gemini, the sign of the first word that comes up when you look up the sign Gemini, communication, okay? And more than that, Gemini is a lot of things. It's also regarded as the sign of siblings. The Jackson 5. Come on, are you kidding me? Now, Gemini is about curiosity. It's about a need for diversity. It's this constant movement, motion. It's about needing to be, your mind needs to be stimulated, learning and exchanging thoughts and your creative inner world. So Mercury, the planet that rules both the sun and the IC, is tells us about how the person is going to transmute their inner creativity to the world. Okay. Now, most of Michael Jackson's childhood, from a very early age, was spent singing, dancing, rehearsing, performing, and constantly being on the road in hotels. That's with his siblings. So there's a sense of, there's that movement. When we look at Michael Jackson, the kid and the teenager, and in the Jackson 5, it is magic. There's that supernatural talent and charisma, and the way that he connects with the audience, and the way that he is able to express emotions in such an authentic, raw way that everyone can identify with. It's really, when he performs, it's electricity. I don't think there's any other performer like him. I mean, he's up there as an artist, as a musician with Elvis and the Beatles. And as a dancer, there's no one else like him either. Okay, wow. I'm getting carried away here. But now, for long periods of time, his life was, maybe for most of his life, but anyway, from such a young age, he was working. They would have tutors and do schooling, do their studies 3 or 4 hours a day. And I think at a certain point he went to a private school because he was already famous. And when he was a teenager, you can go to a regular school, I guess. But he did have schooling, but most of the day was spent rehearsing to perfection. So the work and the perfection are themes that come up with the Virgo archetypes, right? The perfectionist, the craftsperson, and the service. So the house of service, they're all there in the 6th house, and the 6th house is about your everyday mundane work. And it's also about the mentors. So Michael Jackson was, he talks about in interviews, didn't give a lot of interviews, right? He didn't like being interviewed, but when he talked about his childhood, you keep hearing the stories of how he had his idols, whom James Brown, Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, Smokey Robinson, and others, and Diana Ross, of course, and he would watch intently. He was very intelligent, and he was that curiosity of Gemini and Mercury to learn. And he would watch them. He would watch the way that they perform, really, really take it in, and from a very young age. And I also see that humility there of, I'm sure I'm talented. I'm this. Everyone thinks I'm amazing because he was, but always wanting to learn. And there's the famous line that he says, learn from the greats and become greater. And that's what he did, right? He became his own greatness. And let's take that quote, learn from the greats and become greater. Really, I mean, I love it. It's so quintessential of is the way that he got to be what he was. And let's take it from there. Where's Mercury? Mercury is in Leo. Okay, so thanks for watching that, and we're going to continue in part 3 talking about Leo in Michael Jackson's chart, which he has a lot of Leo energy, and Leo is the sign of the performer. Yay. So we're going to go into that and more. And then part 4, I'm planning to talk about the chart behind the chart, that's the uniqueness of evolutionary astrology. So I hope to see you later. Thanks for watching.